All right, we're going to be broadcasting live around the world.
Yeah.
Oh, tell me when you're ready.
Right.
All right. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko tākoro ko waho ko pūhara ki nui o mata awa, ko ihi tai te moana ko Waitai te hapori, ki ngā paenga o tātou I mahi nei, ko Port Mātuku Ingoa, ko au te manakura o tēnei wāhi. Nō reira tēnā koutou katoa. Hi everyone, welcome to the meeting of the Burwood Coastal-Linwood Community Board, or Waitai Community Board as it's known. If you'd like to join me for our karakia timatanga on the screen. Whakataka te hau ki te turu, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tāne, e hihia ki ana te atakura, e tino ki huka, e hauhunga, tīnei maunihara. Thank you, everyone. So first, we do have some apologies from Councillor Barber for absence. Apologies for early departure by Greg for leaving early, 5:30. Do you have any other apologies? All right. Well, no other apologies. Would someone like to move that those apologies be accepted? Moved by Alex, seconded by Jackie. All right. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Does anyone have any declarations of interest to make? No? Well, in that case, move to confirmation of previous minutes on the 10th of June. Jackie, moved by Jackie, seconded by Greg. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. So now we have a few public forums. So first we have Jack Halliday from Waitai Road. And Jack, we so the rules around the public forum is that it's 5 minutes, including questions. But today, just for you guys, we have 5 minutes plus questions. But members don't take that as a license to do speeches. I mean questions. So the floor is yours for up to 5 minutes, and then when you stop, the members will ask you questions.
I won't use 5 minutes, but all I want to say is a little wee request for a pedestrian refuge on Mariha Road. So my doctor's is Build Health, and I've just noticed that during peak periods, it's quite busy. It's quite difficult to cross when you're taking the bus. So to me, this would serve three purposes. First, there's the more open section of Mariha Road. This calms traffic when it comes to the more residential section. Second is access from one bus stop to the other. So for Tamara Park and the housing along there, that bus stop there serves them. So it's easier to get there during the morning. And finally, it's easier to cross the road from Burwood Health onto the other side of the road where there's not another pedestrian refuge up until Burwood Hospital or the One Good Horse. That's it.
Well, that seems like a perfectly reasonable request to me. Have you seen like anybody else struggling to cross the road there?
Not there often, but when I'm there, maybe one or two people I've seen, like they might have to wait a wee while.
All right. Any other members have questions? Celeste?
Oh, thank you. It's always great when people come in and speak to the questions they have. What's the speeding like along there?
Well, with the to the left side of Mariha Road, because you've got kind of wide, clear sections on the left and right, that kind of encourages speeding. Whereas you want people to slow down on the residential part where people walking to and from the hospital, the wetlands, things like that. So you've kind of got more fast, rural moving traffic on the left side coming into the residential part. That's just what I've noticed.
And have you noticed an increase in traffic along there? Because I think I've noticed it in some sections of Mariha Road. It's quite busy at the moment.
I probably would say so.
Yeah. So I guess that just gets referred to staff, does it, for as an action?
Yeah. So what we can do is refer the issues raised for staff to staff for investigation, and they'll come back to the board and staff will let you know if it's on the agenda.
Sorry, there was one more thing. Another thing I noticed is that at that bus stop right outside Burwood Health, because there are no stopping lines, people do park there sometimes. I think the bus stops are going to be relooked as a part of the frequency uplift for the 7, so it might not be relevant, but if not, that's what I noticed.
Yeah, I think, yes, yeah. So, but we will note that down so that make sure that that's addressed. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
We'll be in contact. And now we have Leah. Hi, Leah. So we might come back to her. She comes later.
Can we just make a note that it's spelled wrong in the minutes? An agenda?
What's spelled wrong?
Leah,
Leah.
yeah, I've noted that.
Okay. And also we have Stephen Snow here.
First of all, you've done this. Do I have to push this button or is it?
No, you're live.
All right, okay, I have a concern, for the debris that, from the trees down Lane Street. Have you got photos, Jan? Have you got the photos, Jan?
Yeah, I mean, they've been circulated.
Have been circulated?
I've seen.
Yeah, they're dropping a lot of stuff in the street, they're actually dropping, the stuff onto the properties. They're shading the properties. They're just making an absolute mess. They're actually ripping the footpaths that people use to go to the market. Every month there's a market. So, yeah, just want to see what you're prepared to do about it.
How long have you lived there?
How long I lived there? It's my girlfriend's place.
How long have you been familiar with the property?
2 years.
And do you know what kind of trees they are?
I wouldn't have a clue.
Right.
But apparently it's been brought to the council before, because the lady next door has brought it to the council and they've done nothing about it.
Right. I'm just bringing up that
I don't know if she's been to a board meeting or anything.
did you have any questions, Jan?
Oh, I think, thank you for going to the community board. Do you want to just give a sense of who else is concerned in the street or
Well,
two streets?
Everybody that lives in there, those block of flats, you got those trees dropping stuff all over their property.
And do you want to just, but you kind of touched on it, but do you want to explain what the droppings actually do to the property?
Yeah, they're staining all the concrete. All the seeds that are coming off are staining the concrete. I mean, is the council prepared to come and clean up your stuff or fix the concrete that's getting damaged?
Okay, similar to what we had with the previous person, what we can do is refer it to staff for investigation and come back to the board.
Yeah.
And then our staff will get in contact with you when we have more information. And then,
Well, we did actually get a letter and the council said they weren't going to do nothing about it.
so you got a letter to an address letter or something just?
There was an addressed letter came out and said they weren't going to do nothing about it.
Did they say why?
They just said, oh, the trees are perfectly fine, but the stuff that comes off the trees, it fills up the gutters. There's a business across the road, right? And all the stuff falls on his customers' cars as well. The gutters fill up with all the stuff that's fallen off the trees. I haven't once seen a council truck come down and even sweep the gutters.
Well, the good thing about it when the community board asks for something is that they have to go and look at it again. So we can see what comes back and we can let you know. So we'll refer it to staff for investigation and we'll get some other eyes on it as well.
Right. So how long does the council actually take to go through this process?
How long?
Yeah.
How long is a piece of string?
That's not giving me an answer, is it?
Well, because I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, why don't you guys come down and actually have a look at it?
Well, we could do that.
That'd be a good idea.
Has anyone else had a look?
Yeah, I mean, I've been had a look, and I mean, I've seen all the photos.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at the photos now.
I think the key thing is for the board, I mean, you might want to explain just the process that happens when we get the information back.
Yeah, so I mean, we could physically go down there, but it's not going to speed the process up. Because we've got councillors gone and had a look, we've got photos. I'm not all opposed to going and having a look, but it will not speed the process up. What we can do is, so we send it to staff, and then they will, if they've already obviously communicated with you, so they'll share that information with us. And we will say, can you look at it, please? And potentially give us some options for how we might be able to improve it.
Right.
And then it will come back, and then we might have a decision to make. You will be kept in the loop about that, so the staff will come back, but the process is different from when you make a request of council and then the staff just make a decision and come back to you like with a letter. Whereas because we're elected representatives as a whole, we can ask staff directly to do things, but to do that, it needs to be on our agenda. Just when you come here, that's the start of a process. Next time it comes back to the board, we'll be able to make some kind of decision.
Okay.
Yeah, so I appreciate that it's important to you, but we unfortunately can't make it much faster than that.
Okay, all right. So in the progress of the stuff for the concrete and damage, what do we do about that?
What do you mean?
Well, the stuff staining the concrete. So is the council going to be responsible for fixing that?
I can't comment on that. I don't know.
Because
Yeah, it's not up to me as the chairperson of the board or the elected members around here to say that. It's
because I mean, I understand you have a process, but the longer the process, because all the seeds are actually falling off this time of year, it's going to stain all the concrete.
Yeah, and believe me, you're not the only person in that kind of situation.
Probably everyone else will talk about
around the city. Yeah, well, we can't do anything other than what I've said that we can do.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can answer your question clearly, but what we can do is when we follow up, we can get answers to your questions the best that we can.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Next we have correspondence, which we've about the mosaic for the Rose Memorial Project. I mean, we're not really able to do much else other than just receive that. And yep. So moved by Joe, seconded by Greg. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So next we come to what time are we going to be having the briefing again?
Around 5:15 if we're through with Toby's part.
Yes, so we'll come back to the briefing because Adam is only available on Zoom because he has a.
He'll be here, but at 5:15.
Yeah, he'll be here at 5:15. Yep. So next we have the tree planting plans. Toby.
Kia ora, everyone. So I do have a presentation which we can either go through or we can just jump straight to.
I think it would be helpful.
Cool. Okay. Picks up a lot this mic, doesn't it? I'll sit back a bit and still will hear me. Kia ora, everyone. I'm Toby Chapman. I've met most of you before. I'm the Urban Forest Manager for Christchurch City Council, based in Parks, and I'm here to talk about some planting plans that went out for consultation, and we're hoping to be able to proceed and have them adopted so we can start planting. The parks that we're looking at are Arran Playground, Bradley Playground, Sea Eagles Reserve, Bayswater Reserve, Fairway Reserve, Glenroy Reserve, and St Luke's Reserve. So a lot of reserves. So this planting program is part of the Urban Forest Planting Canopy Increase program that's underway. It's part of the adoption of the Urban Forest Plan, which has a goal of increasing canopy cover across our city, with a focus on increasing planting within our parks, get 40% canopy cover. We're also looking at providing a network of patches of forest and Indigenous forests across the city to help
create some biodiversity corridors and biodiversity nodes. We're trying to increase the visibility of some of our Indigenous species, and you'll notice that on the plans, when we put trees in, they're all planned for maturity. So what you may see sometimes in the past is a landscape plan will have all these trees dotted, but what we're trying to show is the tree at its mature size. So also bear in mind that what you're seeing is what we're proposing will be there in 30, 50, 70 years. It's not going to be there tomorrow. We're trying to take into consideration some of the concerns that have been raised in the past, things like shading, debris, those sorts of things. As part of our plan, we are implementing what's called a recession plane model. So anybody who's built will be familiar with recession planes. You're not allowed to build too close to a property, and depending on your height, determines how close you can get to that boundary. And that is to avoid excessive shading. So we're doing that in our parks. We're using the same recession plane model you would have if we owned the property and we were building a building there. So we're using the same rules for trees. We have offsets for our boundaries. So all of our trees, again, planning for maturity. So at maturity, they will still be within the boundaries of the park. We're not planting them close enough that they'll roll over and have branches over next door. We look at underground services, we look at how the park's currently used, we look at any future plans for the park, we look at the distribution of native forests around it, and also things like waterways and those sorts of things. And offsetting off pathways to avoid root damage to those paths from tree roots. Slide, please. What's been coming through quite a lot is safety concerns. So you'll see on the plans what we've done is we've done an aerial view. Now that aerial view gives the impression of a really dark, thick layer underneath. But that's because we're showing the full extent of the canopy. So what you're seeing from the top is not actually what you're seeing down below. So there's some images there, like the bottom right is probably a bit more like what you're looking, but even those are still only planted 3-4 meters apart, where a lot of our planting is wider than that. We've got setbacks from the paths, so we don't have trees planted hard against the paths. We are primarily proposing specimen trees. So you will see some areas where we're talking about riparian planting or forested areas. So those will be clearly distinguished, but a majority of it is specimen trees. So we're looking at the individual tree with a clear stem so you can see, so we don't get that lack of visibility. Hagley Park, everyone's really familiar with Hagley Park and the oaks going around the outside. They're about 8 metre spacing. So it's probably similar to that. And it's even a lot wider than that because most of the time we don't have the canopies touching. We're only just getting to the point where they're just touching. So the spacing between is quite wide. So there is a lot of space to see between them. I've just got a slide for each park, just to give a real quick summary. So Arran Park, we had no submissions. We aren't proposing any changes. Currently, there's around 23 trees with about 49% canopy cover. We're looking at putting in an additional 12 and increasing to 65% canopy cover. A good point was just made before of what these plans don't show is because we're planning at maturity, a lot of the trees that we're planting are going to be replacing trees. I'm just going to turn that off because it just keeps ringing. Oh, wrong one. Go.
Happy to take questions for each park when you bring up the slide.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it that way.
It's probably easier so that we can all see what one we're talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We can take questions on each one as we go.
So offline, the questions that were raised are around particularly the southeast corner here, and there's one large tree that's proposed to be to put on the boundary there, and we're concerned that would extend shade much further onto the social housing in particular.
Yep.
And Greg was there just recently, and it's concerned that in the winter that play equipment you wouldn't be able to sit on the seat there or use the play equipment because it would always be being cold. Different cold? Park, sorry, not different cold. Yeah, so did you have any comment on that?
Yeah, so that's where we'd start to look at things like our deciduous versus evergreen trees as well. So some of there's already some mature trees in there. So by the time the trees that we plant in 50 years start to get to those big mature trees, a lot of those trees aren't going to be there anyway. So it's not going to be fully representative. The other thing is we've shown the shade modelling in the middle of winter, and shade, everything gets shaded really badly. You put a fence, you put a building or anything like that, your shade cast is so long that it's really difficult to show in a meaningful way.
So if you plant a slow growing tree there, it's the diagrams that we've seen don't really show the impact. There's actually going to be less shading in the long term than there is now.
Yes, and in most situations, or in some situations like this park, it's likely that the shading will be similar or less, because as these larger trees that we're planting, these big new mature specimens come up, the other ones won't be there anymore. We might be replacing them with smaller trees or something like that going forward. So it will change the context of the park. However, in other parks where we've got next to no trees, then yes, we will have more shading than is currently there.
All right. So, I mean, I think my concerns are allayed about this particular one. Greg, did you have any follow-up around this?
Yeah, for myself, it's particularly the two larger trees that are the south two larger trees, particularly if that's deciduous, would be the key part to me. Like you say, there is going to be a lot more, a lot less rather eventually of the other trees. So keeping them as deciduous would keep a similar amount of shading to that point. And yeah, it would be quite a cold space if they did remain leafy all year round for those places south of that. So particularly the two largest, or the three, the other ones along that southwest boundary, the other three could also be considered matching in with what's already there with being deciduous.
Yep, no, that's no problem. We can certainly make them deciduous. I'll take that feedback and we'll just make sure those species are deciduous. Yep.
So we'll just put a noting provision in the resolution.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Next, about Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of one of the concerns that people have raised in the past has been just the ongoing maintenance, where we've had to go in and remove vegetation and trees because of the lack of maintenance. So what sort of assurance can we give the community that if we do plant these trees, that we do have appropriate maintenance to make sure that, the concerns that people have expressed don't materialise?
Yeah, good question. So as part of this program, we not only cover the planting, we cover the establishment for 7 years, which I think is longer than anywhere does. Normally it's 2 years. So in that 7 years, we plant, we water for 3 years, and then we do form pruning right up to 7 years. And then it's year 7, it then goes over to our normal contract, which then goes on a regular maintenance program. So we've thought about the maintenance all the way through. It's not a case of where we often get issues is where we plant a tree, we might spend the first year or two looking after it, and then we leave it and we put it in the maintenance program. It might be 8 years before it gets visited again and pruned again. And in that time, you've got a lot of issues. So picking up all of those issues early is really key.
All right. And so will there be a specified budget for the additional maintenance costs of planting the trees?
That's all incorporated into this. So our internal tree planting team that we've developed for this program now does 7 years establishment.
What about after the 7 years though?
It goes into our normal maintenance program, which is all incorporated.
But what I'm trying to understand is, are we making additional allocation to cater for the number of trees? Like, because people, are concerned at the lack of maintenance already under the current normal program.
Yep, I think.
Wouldn't that be in a long-term plan?
Partially long-term plan. One of the things, so good tree care, they say you should do 80% of tree work in the first 20% of its life. And that's really around that first establishment. So that first 7 years and that first prune, we'll get that lift, we'll get that form correct, and that maintenance over time will be a lot less. We did look at all of that as part of developing this program in the Urban Forest Plan. What were we going to be handing on to future? Because we're looking at doing quite a big increase of our tree canopy across the city. So how are we going to manage the costs? And part of that was really getting that start right. And that's been shown. There's lots of evidence to show that if you start that establishment really well, you reduce a lot of those future costs. So a lot of those costs that you're talking about come from, hasn't been done in the past, constantly having to lift, prune back from boundaries and those sorts of things.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Toby. Next one.
Right, so here is Redford Park. We had 3 submitters, 2 strongly supported. In the response, there were concerns about shading, and we've just basically highlighted that we're going to go with deciduous trees in this landscape. When we looked at the existing trees and the new trees were planted, it's not going to change the shading at all because it's already the trees everywhere anyway. And these will be part of that way of, this is a good, really good example, I think, of putting in some trees for the future to replace some of those others. So if you look at the ones at the top, they're growing quite far over the boundary. The new tree we're planting, we set back, so we don't have that canopy going over. So in reality, when these trees come down, we probably wouldn't be planting them in the same locations, so we'll be setting them back. And again, that lifting to create that clear view lines.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this because I live on Radley Street, and had taken my kids there for years, and I think that it works really well. And you're right about the fact that there's just heaps of trees there. I mean, there is a big walnut tree, or 2 walnut trees there, I think.
Yep.
Which I imagine aren't going to last forever. But they are very popular sources of walnut.
Yes.
So I'd hate to see there be no walnut tree there. But I think reading through the consultations that we've done well to meet the requests of the submitters. So yeah, I think it's good. Any questions about that? Right, next one.
Sea Eagles, so we had 8 submissions, 6 in support and 2 were opposed. The opposition centred around a few things. One was the shading that was going to occur on one particular property, and the other one was the removal of the NIO. So the reason we were looking at removing that NIO was maintenance. We were constantly having to prune and to improve sightlines, but the community seemed to really like that tree. We got a lot of feedback on them wanting to keep it, so we've just gone, cool, we'll leave it. You know, it's okay to maintain a tree if everyone likes it, it's fine. So we're now proposing that we keep that tree. We've changed the height of one of the trees from a large to a medium, and there was one tree that was showing on the plan, which we've taken out now as well. And that was between the 2 paths to alleviate a lot of that shading on that property.
Yeah, so on some of the submissions, there was a bit of concern about the irrigation, and that's it's very, very sandy through there, and the maintenance and of the grass and everything, especially. Is there anything in plan for that?
We've got nothing in plan for irrigating the grass, but as far as the trees go, we've got a pretty rigid watering program to help get them established and species selection. So we're not concerned about the trees as far as water, but as far as the grass area, there's no plans to water the grass.
So that would be someone else's responsibility.
Yeah.
And with the cross sections that you've got on page 61, I take it they have now changed because you're replacing one of the large trees with a medium.
The shade method?
That cross sections.
Yes, yeah, that will change, yeah, because of that one large tree, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Greg?
Yeah, so just on that particular one, so at the northern end there, at the end of Fleming Street, there's 3 properties off the end of that cul-de-sac. So at the moment it's about 4 medium-sized trees through there. The back of those properties is all, basically every one of them has their clotheslines there. Is the shade of that sort of space there where people are looking to dry their clothes and it's the designated space within their house, is that being considered in that space, particularly with such large trees being looked at for them?
So where's Fleming?
Fleming's the street on the top right that's coming in.
Yeah. You shouldn't get too much shading because the sun comes in from the north. There might be a little bit at the end of the day, I suppose, as it comes down.
So the houses are on the left, so the trees are there on the left-hand side. It says small 4. And then
yeah, so the same principle. So you might lose, rise from the east, so you might lose a little bit of sun in the morning, but because it's on the northern side of the park, the shading impact should be quite low.
Yep, you do lose it
from the morning, but the way the houses are situated from midday onwards, particularly through winter, it's shaded anyway. So the only opportunity currently is in the mornings to have the use of their clotheslines.
I don't think you dry much in winter in the morning anyway.
It's the only opportunity in the space. I see what you're saying, but
Yeah.
making sure it was considered in that space.
It wasn't considered as far as clothesline goes. It was considered when we looked at all the shade mapping of the impact, and because it was on the northern side and the recession plate and everything, that's why we were able to do bigger trees when we were in those locations where the boundaries on that front. So we used the recession plate model, but no, we didn't look at clotheslines and the impact on clotheslines.
Sorry, one final question.
Sorry, have you considered the paths going through here, because there's quite a lot of paths and lanes and stuff, about the effect the tree roots would have on the paths?
Yes, so what we've done is we've got setbacks on those to ensure that we don't have that root damage. There's a lot that comes down to when a tree damages footpaths through roots, and we take that into consideration to ensure, without nerding out too much.
Right, any other questions about this one? Okay, well, Bayswater. Sorry, was that about Sea Eagle?
Yes, well, sorry.
Okay, can we go back to that? Yeah.
Sorry, I was just picking up on Briggs' question. Are they deciduous, the ones along that boundary that there was some kind of concerns about? So I know, having lived in many places where you don't get a lot of sun, how important it can be, people's mental health and things. Is there a way to sort of mitigate the impacts in any way? I'm very supportive of putting in, appropriate trees, but is there something we can do there?
We can certainly put in deciduous, but we've got to match that against the other impact that you get from leaf fall as well.
I see. Okay.
So if we had all of those as deciduous trees, you may find that actually people might not notice the loss of shade in the summer, but they might notice the leaf fall. So it's a bit of a balance act. One way of doing it is there are some like semi-deciduous trees, so co-fires, for example, is one. So we can look at trees and we can try and pick our species based on that as well.
We're just sort of able to note that just for another wee thing.
We look at all those things when we choose species anyway.
Have it as a noting provision in the motion. All right, Bayswater, can you move forward to, thanks. Just I think if we had a little bit of discussion, for the public benefit, we'll have it again. But the issue here is that it's in the sports network plan as a sports field, the one that has just been agreed upon by council. And so it would seem imprudent to agree to a planning plan when there is contradiction between two council plans. We need that resolved before we agree on a planting plan.
I would agree. I'm quite surprised because I did take that to the team and that was never raised as an issue. They said it wasn't a sports field that they wanted to use or anyone was using. So,
Yanni?
Yeah, I think the problem is that the sports network plan is a high-level mapping exercise of where sports space is available, but there's been no decisions about specific sports fields. So that's being worked through with the sports codes at the moment. And therefore there's no kind of understanding about what's needed or what's not, other than just a geographical mapping exercise within showing sports fields within certain distance from people, from communities. But what is there when you look at the sports field mapping in terms of access, that there is a bit of a gap in this area.
So what I think I need some advice from Chris probably is that, can we leave just this part on the table for the next meeting, because it's all one report?
Yeah, you can as part of your resolution just request that bring back the Bayswater tree plan with whatever.
Yeah. All right. So we'll do that.
As long as that doesn't impact on, from
no, the last slide kind of highlights that we've got all the planting for the rest of this planting season. So the stuff we're looking at now is for next planting season. So there's certainly time for that sort of.
All right. And
just one more question. Sorry, just one more question on this one in particular. And I appreciate it might be out of your sort of realm in terms of the unit that you're with, but when the kind of master plan was adopted for it, or the landscape plan, concept plan, there was a lot of other stuff that was kind of mentioned. And I just know that there was a lot of engagement with the community, like considerably more than have made submissions on this. With this particular one, did we let a box drop around the area with the specific plans?
Yeah, so we did a letterbox drop for everyone, all of the immediate neighbours of the park, and then we put signage up in the park.
Right. So is that just the people that bordered the park? It wasn't anyone else along Bayswater?
It was every property that bordered the park.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe it's coming back, but just on reflection, do you think we should go a little bit wider, given that the space, is seen by some as a kind of sports space, so other people that don't directly back onto the park may have an interest?
And we just have to be aware that we're trying to do 50 of these every year, so we've got to contain the type of, I suppose, how far we go.
I think
manage that a bit.
Given it's coming back in a month, that if there are local sports clubs or local community association as there is, there, and we can make sure that they know. But I don't know if that your unit is resourced to do any more than that.
Yeah.
So if we can move on to the next one, Fairway Reserve.
Yeah, so just Fairway Reserve, we had 9 submissions, 6 in support, 1 neutral, and 2 somewhat opposed. That was largely around concerns about visibility. So again, that's that whole looking down, seeing something really dense. That's not quite reality. And then the property down the bottom, excuse me, had concerns about shading. So I've been in contact with them. We've changed the plan. We've sent that through to them. And they've said thanks, taken on their consideration, and we'll continue to engage with them when it comes to selecting the species as well.
You could agree.
Just in regards to the property on the bottom left of the it's the left-hand side of the bottom of the park there. When you're in the park, they have their fences like trellising through it, and they can see into the park. What sort of height will the pruning be done to, so that visibility site underneath? Will it still be above fence height, or will it be below the maximum fence height?
It'll likely be above normal fence height, because your normal fence height's 1.8. So normally, if it's over a path, we're pruning to 2.5 metres. So we're normally aiming for about 3.5. So branches have a bit of room to grow down between planting, between pruning programs, and then along our roads, we're normally aiming for around 5-6 metres. For our mowers, we're normally aiming for around 2.5.
Okay, so there is still going to be a gap, because again, it's like they've got a lovely view out onto the park, which potentially is a nice couple of rows of trees. Great for the trees to be there and help keep it cooler in those spaces. But yeah, just again, concern that as long as it's kept to that height and the maintenance is done, it'll be good.
Yeah, so there will definitely be a period where the tree's growing, so we can't get that height immediately, but as the tree, so we don't tend to prune more than a third of the tree. So the tree needs to be up to that 6 metres high before we can get that 2 metre really nice clear lift, and then they continue to grow. So there is a bit of a period in between there, which can be a bit tricky. The tree's also generally a lot narrower and a lot smaller because they're focusing on growing up before they go out.
Right, next one. Roy, this one is straightforward.
Yeah, it's kind of there, 3 trees. Yeah.
And Sam looks. I mean, this one is, to me, is really straightforward too. I've through this quite a few times over the last decade, and I'm always amazed at how bare it is and how it could be really, really neat. So I'm quite enthusiastic about this one. Any questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, is there, one of the simmers talked about the playground being upgraded, so have we talked to the playground unit about doing something at the same time, or?
Not at the same time, but what we do is the planners who organise the playgrounds have a look at all these plans beforehand and make sure that we're not putting something that will cause issues with them putting playground. And what you'll sometimes see in some places, some plans is there'll be a nice open space and it'll be a bit odd why we haven't planted trees there. And it's because they know when they upgrade the playground, they can't put it in the same location. So they've got to move it. And when they move it, that's where they're looking at moving it to. So we do engage with them.
Okay, I guess I was just concerned that the trees that are quite close to the playground, on the other side, like, given that we haven't, I don't know when the playground list is coming back to us. I think it's coming back sometime soon.
Right, I think that's been answered when you said they discuss all the park stuff.
So, but I guess the point is, like, you know, like with Thompson Park, we saw how people don't just like playgrounds being replaced, but sometimes they want us to look at making things bigger or expanding or doing things differently when we engage around playground renewals. So I guess, yeah, so do we know when this playground's up for renewal? We don't.
I don't know when it's up for renewal. I know you've looked at it. I suppose a tree's not a stroke. Like, if it came to it that you needed to extend it, then we can take out a couple of trees if we
And
need
again,
to.
you're not planting this until not this year, but next year, so we've got time. If something comes up, we just.
And we, like, we're all part of the same unit.
Okay.
The other thing they sometimes do is they incorporate the tree into the playground.
Yeah, which is cool too. Yeah, thank you.
Right, thank you. And next one. All right. Any? Yep, it's a list.
Sorry if you've covered this off already, but in terms of the type of trees, in terms of allergies and things, is that something that's taken into consideration?
It is, yeah.
Great. Another one is in terms of things like leaves, but also other sort of things that fall off trees and people get upset about. Is that taken into consideration? So if there are any driveways and things like that?
Yeah, so chestnuts is a great example.
Yeah.
We don't tend to put chestnuts over top of footpaths or courts or basketball courts and things like that for that reason.
I see, yeah. And the just final one is the semi-deciduous one that you mentioned. Would that particularly pose, what type of tree would that be?
So there's a few,
Okay.
it's not really a thing, but it
Okay.
kind of is. So what happens is some trees, depending on the climate conditions they're in, they'll go deciduous. If they're in ideal conditions, they won't. So they've got kind of a lighter canopy. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Tim.
About 5 or 6 years ago in Rafidi, was decided to plant some nut trees because we thought, why not put nut trees in? So the conversation changed to nuts. Are you thinking about any nuts?
So fruit trees is something that comes up quite a bit. We are looking at how we can incorporate fruit trees into our parks more. So the idea of fruit trees is great, but there are some issues that come with fruit trees as well.
My personal view is fruit trees are too many hassles with them, but nuts are better.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid point. We also get complaints about nut trees because they attract things like rats and stuff like that, mowers and rolling onto paths and things. But yeah, in the right location, yeah, good idea.
Yeah, I've seen some big rats in Radley Park.
Yeah. I think you've done a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm subject to the noting provisions. I think, yeah, it's really good. Did you have anything you wanted to finish off with?
I suppose it's just, we do put a lot of thought into these. We try and communicate as widely as we can. This isn't the end of the process. So as part of that feedback, we get a lot of information on the things that people are interested in as far as trees. Some of them like autumn colour, some of them like flowering. So we try and incorporate that into our species as well. We've been into some parks, we've gone to plant a tree which has been approved and the property owners come out and gone, that's right in the way of my view of the hills. So we just don't put the tree in. You know, we're not there to try and cause problems. We do, you know, we take into consideration, people come across, talk to us, we shift things a bit left, right. We remove things, we plant smaller ones. The landowner might go, I don't want that type of tree here. And we go, cool, what do you want? So we try and bring them in with us. So like I say, this isn't the end of the journey. We do try and accommodate other things afterwards as well.
Right, thank you. And I really appreciate that constructive approach. Right, well, if you want to take a seat back in the gallery, we've got the staff recommendation, which I think needs some amendment. So we've got noting provisions. So we've got the note around that we want deciduous trees for the new large trees in Arran playground. And for at Sea Eagles, we want semi-deciduous.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Along which boundary was it?
It's the north end.
Along the
Median,
What's the street called? Fleming. Taking on the Fleming.
Can we change semi-deciduous to low-density canopy? Because like I said,
To-
semi-deciduous isn't technically a
Yeah.
big bit.
low density canopy.
It's a contradiction, isn't it?
Demi-deciduous.
Yes, Fleming with one name.
Then we want, so we'll come, and Bayswater, we would like staff to bring to lay it on the table, staff to bring back to the next meeting, subject to confirmation or to clarification on its status in the
So that was it.
On the confirmation?
confirmation. Oh, sorry, request that staff bring back Bayswater Reserve plans with confirmation, so with of its status in the Parks Network Plan. Can you suggest some wording there, Yanni?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just to get some further advice onto the assessment with the sports network plan and the tree planting plan, because and probably
Sports Network Plan, yeah.
and probably the sports field network plan, sorry,
Sports
and
field.
possibly alongside the existing landscape plan.
Well, that we have a landscape plan.
Yeah.
That will effectively
That's
amend.
right.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think you need existing.
Yeah, so if you look at the previous plan that was approved, there's supposed to be sports facilities there that are not there.
But that was
They
in
haven't
2007.
Put in, yeah.
I don't know if that helps. I think that muddies the water. And
Okay.
I think Toby's.
I think it's fine. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
the point is that we need to understand the process around the sports network plan
Yes, we do.
as well, around how locations will be decided.
So I'm going to move that resolution from the chair.
I'm not second that.
I think I had Celeste.
First. Oh, Celeste first.
That should be me.
Celeste raised her hand first.
Is it in your ear?
All right, so moved by me, seconded by Celeste. And I just want to say, look, one of the things that that I campaigned on was making sure that all suburbs could be leafy suburbs, and that, you know, for a long time, people who grow up in areas like I grew up in and areas where I live in now have not had access to lush green parks with beautiful trees to the same degree as other areas. So I'm always very pleased to be able to approve these planting plans. So I'm very happy. I'm happy to put that now unless anybody else wants to say anything. Celeste?
I'm really just repeating what you've said, but I just want to also say thanks so much. I know how much work has gone into this. It's a huge amount of work in a short period of time. And like a lot of things that we come across at the community board, it's a lot of local interest. Parks are really important to people. So I think the way Parks team have approached this has been really, it's a good example of where people can engage and actually influence the outcome. So I'm pleased that this is going through today.
Well, I'll take one more or I'll put it.
I'm impressed with the plans, and I wish I'd listened to Harry when I was 16, and I'd be sitting in your seat now.
All right. On that note, the motion will now be put. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you, Toby. Right, so now we come to our briefing about wastewater treatment plant. Good evening, Adam. And just a reminder about the operational aspects of the plant. and what's happening on site, not the insurance matters.
That's correct, yes. Brilliant, sorry. Firstly, thank you very much for flexibility and fitting me into your programme. It's greatly
No
appreciated.
problem.
So, yeah, this is a July update of where we're up to at the CWTP. Just to reiterate what the chairperson said, so in scope is where are we with the operation of the interim solution and what activities are we currently undertaking to get owners. Out of scope is implementation of findings to the independent review, the current status of the insurance claim and the status of the permanent replacement solution. The agenda of what I'd like to run through today is where are we up to with the current odour monitoring, what's the current odour situation, where are we up to with our odour management action plan update, how are the aerators doing on the oxidation pond, where are we up to with the biological and chemical supplier trials, and thankfully now that the long-term plan has been released and approved, what does that mean for the wastewater treatment plant? Just to confirm, we are still continuing to monitor the odour at those 4 community location sites, and again, all the information is still being provided up onto the webpage. These 2 graphs show the last week for the last 2 months. So the last week of May is shown there on the left, and the last week of June is shown there on the right. These are the 4 community sites that I just showed on the previous slide. As you can see, on the last week of May, there was a very low levels across all 4 sites, with just the Shoreland Street, which is the closest location, picking up any discernible detections. And on the right, you can see it's virtually down to 0. My colleague spoken to ECAN past couple of days and confirmed that in the past week there has only been 1 odour complaint. So what we're seeing on our meters is also reflecting what's been experienced in the community and reported to ECAN. The odour management action plan is continues to be updated on our website, and I'll run through the various points now. The inlet screen room, the primary settlement tanks and the sludge dryer, so points 1, 2 and 6 of the odour management plan. We're waiting on the outcome of the approval of the long-term plan. So now that that's finalised, I can provide an update on those, which we'll be providing shortly. The temporary secondary treatment, so this is the project we've got going with Jacobs to see if we can get the temporary activated sludge plant to work any harder and more efficiently for us as the interim measure. We are in week 3 of the first stage, which is to run between 4 and 6 weeks. So we're in stage in that at the moment, and that's still going to continue to run for overall 20 weeks, so a further 17 weeks to go on that. So once we have some data, we'll be able to provide on that. But just to let you know, we're well on way with the first stage. This number 5, the digesters for the odour management action plan. The tender for that is still out on the open market. Lots of interest from various tenders coming in. Just to give you an idea of scale, everything that's sort of a weird and wacky colour on those 2 images on the right shows all the new pipework that's going to be installed and all the gas treatment systems and the gas storage system that's been proposed to go in as part of this tender for the work that's out there. To try and give you an idea of scale, on the top picture on the right, if you look at the bottom, you just see the size of a couple of cars in the car park there. That's just to give you an idea of the distance of the pipe runs and the size of the membrane on site. So that's what we're underway. Oxidation pond aerator status. Contractors continue to have to undertake unplanned reactive maintenance on the disc aerators. In layman's terms, they keep breaking, the contractor has to keep coming in and picking them up. The ones that are particularly problematic at the moment are the disc aerators. So on the image on the left-hand side, that's the layout of the pond, and it's the 5 disc aerators highlighted. What they are doing, they are not providing the main bulk of the oxygen into the water, they're just providing the flow and pushing the water around. The photograph on the top right shows it what it looks like when it's in motion. So the discs rotate and they push flow. On the bottom right is obviously what it looks like when it's not working. And the middle picture just sort of shows the level of work involved when the contractor has to come, disconnect it electrically, connect it mechanically, lift it out, take it away to a local workshop, undertake the repairs and then bring it back. This is the performance report for the disc aerators for the past month. So across the top, we've got disc aerators 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then down the left-hand side is the previous month, running from the 7th of June to the 6th of July, thank you. Brain just stopped working there. Green, hunky-dory, it's run 100% of the time. Red shows all the reactive periods when the contractors had to go in. So sometimes it's a short duration, other times you can see where it stopped halfway through the day, it's been off for a number of days and then been brought back into service. So as you can see at the bottom, only disc aerator number 4 is currently out of service at this time. So in summary, 15 aerators are on the bottom at this moment in time. The biological chemical trial. So this is where 6 suppliers have come to us, offered their product which can resolve the odour issues and get the treatment plant to work better. All the suppliers provided all the information necessary to us. 2 of them aren't suitable to go forward, so we're proceeding with 3 at the moment. However, we've just had another supplier being interested today, so we're looking to step them in, given that 2 suppliers have gone out. Got a location on site at the CWTP set up, and we've liaised with our on-site laboratory, so all that sampling has now been organised, and that small-scale trial is due to start in mid-July. So just to run through the trial stage at the bottom, we've got all the information from all the products, that's done, apart from the new one that's jumped on today. The small trial scale of 20 litre sample, it's about that big, will be underway shortly. And then depending on the outcome of that, we'll progress to the medium scale trial at 1,000 litres. And then after that, we'll be asking the suppliers what are the costings involved in doing a full scale months-long trial to dose the entire site. What I've got over the next few slides, appreciate it's quite small on the screen. So I've looked into the proposed capital delivery programme, the latest copy that I've got from the LTP, and I've extracted all the 5 pages from the wastewater collection, treatment and disposal. And I'm just going to go through and talk through some of these projects, what it means for the site, and also particularly to the local odour mitigation solutions. So on the first page there, you can see this covers both water treatment, laboratory, wastewater, a whole load of things, and you can see a couple on there that are for the CWTP but aren't directly related to what we're doing in terms of the odour. This is the second page. So on the left-hand side on the odour mitigation scheme, so we've identified that there's work to be done on the inlet screen room and also on the digesters. So projects 17881 and 2318, the CWTP plant reactive renewals and the CWTP health and safety renewals. As you can see to the right, they've got some funding in it, so that is what's going to be used to fund the proposed work in the inlet screen room. And on the bottom for the digesters to upside the pipework, so that's the pictures I showed earlier with all that fancy colour of the pipework. That's that 47123, which is a CWTP biogas storage upgrade. And as you can see, a lot of the funding is starting in 2024, 25, 26. So for the inlet screen room, there's the 2 projects that cover this, and this is just to give you a bit of an insight into it. So the work we're proposing on the inlet screen room will be funded by the CWTP treatment plant reactive renewals. And as you can see there, those are all the people that are involved in that project. So executive sponsor is the chief exec, project manager has been assigned as Patrick Cantillon, head of department is Brent. And then onto the right-hand side, project sponsor is Grant Stirwell. I'm obviously the operations manager. Gavin Hutchinson's manager of plan delivery, and Grant Stirwell is delivery and plan manager. And Don Garcia was who they originally put the project into place. Screen hasn't changed much, but the project has. So this is the CWTP health and safety renewals. Again, depending on which aspect of the upgrade we're doing, will depend whether it's a reactive renewal or if it's related to health and safety, it'll be funded out of this one. And again, there's all the people that we'll need to liaise with to make sure the project goes through. Moving on to the digesters, this is again that big biogas project, and again just to sort of highlight that it's in there and there's the people involved in it. Going on to the next page of the LTP, I'll go to the bottom arrow first, which is for the sludge dryer. So this is the work that's proposed on there. So project 60322, which is a sludge dryer renewal. As you can see, the funding for that is over the next 2024-2026. So the work that the pre-prep work that needs to be done will be covered in that 215,000. And then the majority of the work will be in that 2.5 million in the year 2025-26. The one above that, with the arrow project 60317, CPTP odour control renewals and enhancements, that's what's been put in recently as a result of the incidents that's been going in on site. And as you can see, there's some funding in there. So that's when I'm going to have to sit down and work with the asset managers to work out what we're going to be doing with that. As you saw earlier on, the current odour issues and current odour levels are effectively zero. So we've still got to make sure this is ratepayers' money. I am very aware of that, and we do need to make sure we're spending it in the right locations. So again, those are just the people that's been highlighted it. So just one thing I'd like to point out in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that the project's been initiated by myself. So this is me putting the request in. So it's just a demonstrating that council planning, capital delivery are listening to us and ops and are putting in money as we request it. The sludge dryer again, covered it mostly, but again in the bottom right, so this is a project that I brought up about 4 or 5 years ago, so it's great that the money's in the LTP to be doing the work on it. Again, just to highlight that civic ops managers are listening to us. The next page, just for context to put it in, as you can see, there's no specific projects that I've linked to our road mitigation programme, but you can see there's lots of money in there for the CWTP electric renewals, Banks Peninsula and stuff. The next page and the last page of the LTP projects for wastewater on the left-hand side is the primary settlement tanks. So that's related to project 74954, which was the wastewater primary supplementation flight and change renewal. So flight and change renewal is basically the mechanicals at the bottom of the tank that go around. And as you can see in there, there's 300,000 per year going forwards to completely overhaul and renew each one of those tanks going forwards. And it's discussed with the asset managers that we can include other upgrades and renewals associated with those primary tanks. So where we've identified that there's insufficient scum removal systems in place, that's where I need to work with the asset managers to get that incorporated into that project. The one beneath that as well is the inlet screen room. I have said that there's the health and safety and the reactive renewals are going to cover towards the inlet screen room, but there's also some additional funding left over from the inlet screen renewals there. So there's 149,000 there to be available in this coming year as well. So there's the tanks and step screen renewals.
Thanks, Greg.
And that's it.
No, all good. All right. Any questions? Celeste and then Yanni.
I know we've touched on this before, but can you just recap what the aerators?
On the ponds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that, you know, there is always going to be sort of things you can't predict, but it seems to me that the aerators haven't performed particularly well, and there's been more issues with them than perhaps we would like.
I would agree. So we on the activated slug plant itself, we've got 8 aerators there from a different supplier, and in 2 years they've only been off for 30 minutes for planned routine maintenance. So we've got 8 aerators on site that have performed faultlessly for 2 years, and then we've got these aerators on the ponds from a different supplier that, as you can see, we're struggling with.
So will we be looking at switching these up? Because it would seem that from a performance point of view, if they're not performing and we've paid for them, is there a plan to replace them?
Operations are providing feedback to the capital delivery team and the project manager on the performance of these units.
Can we get an update on the next one in terms of what the plan is?
I can certainly ask that, yes.
Yeah.
Are they all disc?
No, so there's the 5 disc ones around the outside, so there's the yellow arrows, which are these ones that go through. All the other blue dots on the way through are the circular ones with the motor on top, with the sprays out. I haven't got a picture of that. But we've had a number of issues with those as well.
They're same supplier.
Yes, all the aerators. So the supplier covered everything on the ponds, from getting the power across there to designing, building, installing, running the power cables, and also connecting up to our SCADA system.
Which is different to the supplier on the plant for the other year.
Correct.
Yanni?
Yeah,
thank you for the update and the work that you're doing. Just in terms of the odour, measuring the odour, has there been any considerations at actually doing a community survey around the impacts that it's having on the local residents? Because I appreciate we've only got the kind of one measure.
That is not something that Adam can respond to, I don't think. That's outside of the scope.
I'm from Ops, so I can provide the objective data.
Yeah.
So I'd have to work with a separate team and they'll just go for the subjective.
Are you able to give us an update on the abatement notice that he can serve? No, is that legal, is it?
Yeah, it's, I think just focus on the operational aspects of the plan. If you have any other questions, then we can deal with that separately.
But I guess the key question is like, we've got the odour measurement.
Correct.
For the, you know, for I presume it's for the operation of the plant, so we know that we're within certain limits. Do we have any data on the ocean outfall stuff as well? Or is that separate?
We do.
I'm just trying to understand, I guess, around consent compliance.
Yes, we do meet regularly with ECAN. We're actually meeting with them tomorrow as well. We have been undertaking additional meetings with them on a fortnightly basis to provide them with updates on that. We have been proactive in providing all the samples analysis we're taking. In reference to the ocean outfall, I can confirm we take all the samples in compliance with the required schedule that we're supposed to, as per our resource consent. When we do get samples that exceed the consent compliance, we are required to take additional beach sampling. I can confirm that's all been done.
Right, Tim?
Just understand a bit through that. The chemicals that be possibly used.
Yeah.
Whereabouts do they go? It's got the settling points out before that.
So there is, bear with me. We do use chemicals as part of our routine process. The one that we use most often is something called PAC, which is a settlement. You add it and it helps solids dewater. So in our gravity belt decks, sludge belts, we add it to that. It causes the sludgy bits to stick together. The water falls through the pores belt, goes out, and the solids carry on to the next stage. Digestion, belt press, thermal dryer. That's routine normal chemicals you'll find on most large-scale wastewater treatment plants where they treat sludge the same way that we do. We also dose some of that chemical to our temporary activated sludge plants to try and aid the settling to get it to perform better. The chemicals that we're doing here are interesting chemicals which are typically normally used on smaller scale to enhance where you've got low oxygen issues or you've got high hydrogen sulfide issues or stuff like that. Very rarely are these type of chemicals used on such large scale processes that we do. Normally they're on much smaller populations, up to about 5, 6, 10,000 population or thereabouts. But we've done a lot. We put it in, we're still having odor issues at times. It would be amiss of me to completely forget about all these other alternatives when there is something that we could do. However, it is ratepayers' money. We do have to be special. It will be potentially a significant cost if we proceed with any of these, and we just need to go with our eyes open and understand the best that we can. What we do, how we dose it, where we dose it. Some have suggested dosing right upstream, so in the primary tanks. Others have suggested dosing at the head of the oxidation ponds. So we're going with whatever the supplier's recommended dosing points and dosing rates are.
Yeah, and it's just temporary until it's fixed.
Yes. Oh yeah. No. Yeah. So when the new solution goes in, the idea is that all the temporary activated sludge plant that are put in will be removed. All the aerators on the pond will be removed. We may keep them in for resilience at the start. In the early days, we have shaken the ponds up a lot. We've put a lot of stuff towards it. There's quite a lot of sludges built for the time. Again, we're taking monitoring for that, so we understand what it is. So even when the new solution comes in, we may still have other bits going just to try and ensure the site is operating as well as it can do.
Yeah.
But in my mind, as operations manager, the intention is to get back as much as possible.
That's great.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Adam, for your comprehensive report again, and for your continued work keeping the plant running.
Brilliant. No, thank you very much.
Right.
Thanks.
Right. We've got our the report, so that's over to you, Chris.
So I think I'll take the report as read. It's some really good stuff from the team in there. The only thing that I'd really draw you to is what we're starting to do now is add to the area report a monthly update on the Eastern Relationship Project. So there's kind of a bit of a snapshot. So that's the first report. We're aiming to have that each month to the board's area report. It also goes through to the chief executive because she's got an interest in this project, and it will also flow through to the council meeting as well, so that they can be kept up to date of what is happening. So I think that's the only thing I really wanted to touch on, but happy for questions.
All right, thank you. Joe?
Just in regards to the Brooklyn Spencerville petition part, did they get sent that report and has there been a response from them?
I know that Cindy sent it, but not sure.
I
of the
can
response.
confirm that it has been sent to both Amanda and Jan, as indicated in my email to the board, as well as a response back from Amanda acknowledging the email and with a statement along the lines of that they can only continue to advocate for what they are wanting. So there was no additional request of the board and or council in her response.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you for the report. I was just wondering, are we able to get a breakdown by street of the, or some sort of understand, like we've got the ward-based incident categories, which is good to see between wards what the trends are. But like if you take water supply, for example, what would be interesting to know is if there's hotspots within our wards that are generating a lot of complaints. And I don't know, I've asked the finance and performance, and I think I've been told that board staff will have access to that, but we won't as elected members. But I'm just trying to understand if like there's a way in which we can see more of the problem areas that we're getting complaints from. I mean, I just know in my local area, for example, you know, the Toby box goes and then another one goes, and then, you know, you get 5 or 6 and you think maybe we need to actually do something with the water supply. But everyone seems to just be told to lodge a CSR. So just at our level, I just wonder if there's a way to have more useful information that means that we can advocate for, I guess, some better infrastructure where there are kind of hotspots of problems.
Yeah, and
West is the other one, but, you know.
The first point I'd make is definitely keep encouraging people to log tickets because it's really important for reporting. And I know that there is work being done behind the scenes to give us access to more of the detail that sits within Hybris, so that we're able to go into an area and see where the tickets are coming from. So they came out to the community governance managers not that long ago to show some of the work that they're doing. And I know that they're working on refining that so that we can get access to more of that data, and then in turn we'll be able to provide it to you.
I mean, I just had a brief comment, but I don't know if you want me to wait until debate.
Well, I think it would be good to add to the resolution something around that the board requests mapping or other ways to see what is happening street by street in terms of CSRs and incidents. So we can add that as add to that resolution. Any other
There
questions?
used to be a dashboard available online, but we can't access that now, can we?
I don't believe so.
Remember we had a last term, someone came out and they showed us how to access the dashboard,
So
and
that's-
had dots everywhere about where the problem areas were.
So that's the system that they've been refining, that they came out to show us not that long ago. So
Yeah.
I think that's what we'll be able to get into, to get to that detail. I think part of the issue is to be able to access the, the attachment in the report. That's a graphic that you can click on those columns and bars and get more detail. You actually have to be on the council network to access it. So that's why elected members can. It's because it doesn't live outside of the council network.
Right, yeah, and
Do you
this
want
is
your resolution to vote also?
just the board requests mapping or another way to see what is happening in terms of CSRs and incidents street by street. Do you want to?
Well, yeah, if it's possible to get a heat map of the CSRs by ward to know where the geographic hotspots are.
e.g. a heat map. Any other questions of Chris for his report?
I did, in terms of the Eastern Relationship Project, just I guess just to understand what work's being done around looking at the current budgets. And I guess the reason for asking is that I've seen that, for example, there's a whole roading renewal program, which I don't know how we get visibility at community board, but Pages Road has been renewed. And I'm also mindful that we still don't have any update on the preferred cycleway for the MCR, which should be, I think, going down that area as well. And I don't know what community engagements happened around the renewals. I just know that there's people in that community, particularly around where they're doing the current renewal, that may have views on putting in a safer crossing, putting in a cycleway, putting in some, amenity trees, or tidying up some of the amenities where we've got barren land. So I'm just trying to understand, like, if there's a process around looking at the existing budgets and what the opportunities are to engage with communities.
So I guess it's a tricky one to answer. So it's, with this project, it's going to be an ongoing one for a long time. And obviously, where there's opportunities with projects that are happening where we can engage or look to improve that engagement, we will. But in terms of sort of, with, say, Pages Road Bridge, which is a project that's probably coming towards its end now, it's probably too late to be looking at that for a project like that. But also, the overall Eastern Relationship Project is going to probably sit at a higher level, looking at where the gaps are in our relationships with the community, looking to sort of build new connections. And I think what you're talking about on individual projects, what would be helpful is, as they're arising, we'll look from our network where we can engage or work with the engagement team and where they can engage. But we'll also rely on the board, as you'll see in these projects come up, if there's gaps as well, on who we can be talking to. So it's going to be something that we all have to work together on as well. So it's not something that we're just going to sit down and go through a list of projects and reanalyze things, but it's something to look.
But just, I guess, in terms of renewal, like Pages Road renewal, did we get a start work notice or an opportunity to look at the design? So not the bridge, this is further down towards Cuthberts and Cowles kind of area.
No, I can't.
They're doing the curb and everything.
Well, sorry, I'm not sure what you mean.
So what we used to do is, if council was doing a renewal of a given channel, we engage with the local community to find out what the issues were, and then that would feed into an approval of a design that would, put in some safer.
Just looking at that project, when I drove past the other day, I think it's similar to what they did in Marine Parade, and it's not a council one, it might be the underground one. It is council.
I've got the list, and there's a whole bunch of streets in our ward area that are getting renewed. But I guess if you were looking at opportunities to develop relationships with the community, to me, it would seem sensible to engage people around what the outcomes you want to achieve. I guess what I'm concerned about is that we're gonna dig it up and put a major cycleway in there, but we don't even have, and the community and us don't have visibility of where the preferred cycle, where it is down there. But we're seeing hard infrastructure being put in.
I'm not sure. I think I could be wrong, but I think with renewals, it's not something that we go out and consult on for general renewals, and you might know better than me. But if it's something that's new infrastructure or something that's going in, then you would consult. But if it's just a general street renewal, other than the start works notice, I don't think we go out and consult on this, because renewals are happening constantly.
I do think that it would be what Jan's getting at, and I in spirit I agree with, is that when council is going to be doing work in an area, there may be opportunity to engage the local community and say, what else should we know about when we are doing this project? Like, it's different from a consultative procedure of some kind. It's more like, well, we're going to be doing this work. Should we know about some other things? Please tell us about those things we want to know, because we actually want to make it better, not worse.
No, for sure. I think one of the, and it's something that we can probably work through more offline, one of the issues that you'll run into that is resourcing. So who's going to be the one to be able to go out and talk for every renewal, because the transport team wouldn't have that resource to be able to do it.
Yes, and I appreciate that it's always going to be a matter of resourcing, but in terms of building relationship with communities, it might be something that we want to look at getting resourced.
Sorry, I just wanted to,
Just want to ask a question about your question. Yeah, me too. Sorry,
And then Joe.
in regards to street renewals, are we getting a briefing on that? Is that going on?
What's that, sorry?
The street renewals, because that's what Yanni was asking about. Are we getting that information? 'Cause
So there is a list that, now that the LTP is done, I think staff will have decided on the priority list for renewals, all deciding soon. And then I imagine, then I hope that we will be being briefed.
Okay.
So the answer is I don't know.
Are we able to ask that question? Because we were advised at council that, because I keep getting questions around how do we prioritise things in our area. We don't know where the program of work is. We're in a bit of a closed loop of no information.
Can you add to the board requests a briefing regarding the streets renewals program?
Are you saying it wasn't my ignorance to know that wasn't going to happen?
Unfortunately not.
Oh, good.
We're all a bit ignorant at the moment as to what's happening. Yeah, so he's kind of asked one question I was going to ask, but following on from that, the online information that's available on the council side about future works is not correct. And people were saying, well, what's happening with this work that's happening? And you refer back to the website and it's not even mentioned on the website. But then again, there's a renewal planned coming up for Bowhill Road, which is just last year been done. So it's all out of date and we need it updated.
Yes, keeping the information up to date on the website seems like a basic function, but doesn't seem to.
So the only information on Pages Road, for example, is the TMP, the temporary traffic management. That's all the community's told about what's happening. There's no information on the work in your area. There's no information on the future, the transport resurfacing program or renewal program. So yeah, there's a massive problem with how we're doing stuff, and it'd be good for the board, I think, to think about how we could provide some feedback around how we can improve. And that's why I was thinking, particularly because the eastern stuff, there is work that's programmed to happen, but we don't seem to have visibility of what the opportunities are to engage where it's appropriate.
It's such a positive thing that they're doing, eh? We're talking with the people, they'll be going, great, it'd be a great thing for the council to communicate.
So what about that? The board requests an overview of the projects within the board area and a workshop with staff around engaging through that program.
Projects, would be specific as to.
No, overview of it's really renewal projects, I guess.
Yeah, renewal program.
I don't know, we want them to talk to us, we want them to talk to the community, but they don't even talk to each other.
Well, yeah, I guess that's the thing. We can have that conversation.
Yeah.
We can try and.
I don't know how many times I've asked them why they don't talk to each other when they're doing a road there and a road there, and they haven't actually talked to each other to say we're doing the exits out of this area.
I mean, yeah, we do. There is an ongoing issue, at least in parks. We're bringing it all back inside council, so that they're all, in theory, all talking to each other.
So sorry for you, Mr. Chair. So
yes.
Just to be clear, so number 4 relates to street renewals. Is number 1 still relevant if we've added workshop?
Number 1, sorry?
Sorry, is number 3 still relevant? And they've been merged?
Yeah, they can be merged.
Yeah. Would it be appropriate to footpaths as well? Is that complicating things? Because I know, for example, in Kainga, they've had very little love. And it is, if we're gonna do the road, we might as well do the footpath.
Oh, I can say it was streets and I guess street, I'm thinking footpaths is included.
I think so, 'cause it's separate.
So let's say street and
Yeah.
footpath.
In the last few months, it's been like a lot of paths being done that nobody has known about.
Street and footpath.
Hmm.
It's great, but it's.
It is great. It's like, really? Oh, wow, that's cool.
Celebrate it before we do it.
All right, I'm reluctant to add any more to this. I think we've got quite,
Covers it.
It'll be good.
yeah, that'd be good. So in that case,
Just throw a brick.
well, what was that, Alex?
I'm happy to consider. So just,
Okay, well, you,
I'm happy to move.
I've said I'm reluctant to add any more to this.
I know, but just, I think one of the really important things is to embrace, it's not just around engaging, it's also around communicating as well. So just don't know if that could just be added in 3, and just, because I know you didn't want to add any more, but I just wanted to.
Engaging and communicating, sure.
I just wanted to.
Engaging in community, I mean, isn't it covered? Yeah, that's what I think.
I just wanted to add a resolution to thank the staff at Te Poi Toi Toi for hosting the Shed Kai events. They were really amazing. There's reference to it in the Eastern Relationship Project.
Oh, we can add that as point number 4.
Yeah, I just think it'd be nice for the board to send a letter.
The board wishes to record its thanks to the staff at Te Poi Toi Toi
Yeah, and the Shed Kai team or who.
and the Shared Kai team.
Yeah, they're gonna decide. Or maybe they won't.
For,
So that's in common.
Sorry, I'll just, is it called in common? Sorry, I'll just.
sorry, well, it's, when we have one conversation, it's a little distracting for.
It's the, you could just put the in common team.
And the in common team.
Yeah.
Okay, so take Shared Kai. Yeah, in common. Team for their work on the Shared Kai.
Yeah, on the Shed Kai and Korero events.
On there, I think it was corridor.
Corridor?
Um,
I can tidy up.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
all right, well, I'm gonna move that from the chair. Oh, seconded by Alex. Put that now, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you, thanks Chris for your report, and for the staff team for the work. Members info, Alex seems to have his hand up. Can I request that we don't take too much longer on this? Because all we can do is share and ask for information. Well, sorry, we can do is share information. I've just been reminded, because we used to be able to ask for information. So, Alex.
cool. I just really quickly want to acknowledge the work that the events team went into the Winter Fireworks Spectacular. It was a really, really well organised event. Aside from traffic management, I just want to raise that staff are looking into what went wrong, as some of the board members will know, in regards to traffic management, and there's going to be a report coming. And I also just want to raise concerns about the blockage of the disability access, which isn't specifically disabled access, but has been used by members of our disabled community to access the beach. So I hope we can work together with staff to work out a way forward and potentially create an accessible path that generations can use. So I'll be chasing that up.
All right, Joe.
Okay, so Celeste and I actually attended a meeting on the greater emergency response planning for the area.
Oh, good.
Yep, and just so you know, there's a Know Your Neighbour campaign coming up. Lila from Renew and Elisa from Neighbourhood Watch are teaming up, and they're using the resources through Neighbourhood Watch to actually start the ball rolling and trying to, Neighbourhood Watch have got about, was it 370 groups throughout the area that we're in, that they're focusing on, that they can actually try to contact to actually aid in contacting the streets and the areas and neighbourhoods to do with the response planning. The first one that we're going to have, we're teaming up with Johannes from the New Brighton Residents Association and doing a small trial area, and that is Keys Road by Lonsdale Street on the 3rd of August between 1 and 2. So we're looking for just trying to get some resources together, some leaflets to hand out, and then trying to get everyone on board of those few streets, and then taking it further and seeing what's available. So
Cool.
it's rolling.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else wish to share anything? Tim?
I went to the opening of the, well, not the opening, the open day of the housing units in Dunedin Street. And I was very impressed with the design,
Right.
layout.
Yeah, I went door knocking there when they were being built.
And it means, I can't remember the new name for Linwood North, with Linwood School.
Yeah, Vito.
Vito. Oh, Vito. And they'll have another 200 odd kids on the roll from the developments around there.
Yeah.
So good for them.
Right. I just wanted to shield you that the board chairs and staff forum, was it this week? It was on Thursday. We are having a bit of a chat around civil defence again. So Brendan Winder and John Forsell going to be speaking about that, and we're going to be looking at the annual plan process and how that could be better than the long-term plan process, and also talking about delegation review. There's supposed to have been looking at community board delegations, and hoping that we'll get the community board will get more rather than lose what we do have. Yep. So those are the things that I've asked to be on the agenda.
So in regards to the delegations, the request that kind of Alex put through about the parks, has that been considered amongst that?
Don't know yet, but that's one that has definitely been raised by more than one board.
Because in regards to what Alex was saying about the coastal development areas and our walkways and everything, I think we should have some say on what's happening with the coastal area as well, and that would be probably separate to parks, or maybe as part of parks.
Yep, well, I can definitely mention those things.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yanni?
But yeah, I just wanted to share three things. One again, just to we've acknowledged the good work of the In Common team, but the Shared Kai events are really amazing in Linwood, and I know that they're looking to host some in New Brighton, I think, which would be really cool. So whatever we can do as a board to support that, I would just say it's really cool to bring cultures together, employ local people to cook, and then for people to come and try new food that's affordable, and that brings people together. So just wanted to acknowledge, I know our staff also have been really supportive of those events. I want to acknowledge our staff as well. Second thing is I just want to let the board know that the council has voted to cancel its local government New Zealand membership. So apologies if any board members are impacted by that, but hopefully there's some work going to happen to look at what replacement will be put in place to support board members. I know that some board members would directly benefited from a membership in LGNZ. So, I think that means that the LGNZ conference won't be here next year in 2025.
I do understand that that board members will have access to professional development.
Yeah,
as part of it. But it would be good for community board members to have access to whatever the cause of it. It'd be good to have access to that, because people come with quite a wide variety of experiences.
Yeah. And then the third thing I just wanted to reflect on, the LTP has been finalised, but actually a lot of transport projects have been deferred until September. So there's probably going to be another round of some form of engagement, possibly consultation around budget changes to put things into the long-term plan or to the budget cycle. And that's basically because we don't have certainty around what the government funding is through the National Transport Program. But just to share the concerns, because I know we can't ask for information, that there was a lot of concern from some submitters that there's a huge amount of growth going on in places like Linwood and Woolston, but there's not enough visibility of the growth projects that have been put in place to deal with the impact of that growth. And the council has basically asked for a workshop with the development contributions team who look at some of the growth related projects to get clarity around how we can actually start getting some greater visibility around that. The long-term plan was really confusing around what got cut and what got put into other budgets. So it looks like a lot of urban growth for suburban infill that we're seeing got removed from the budget. Those staff have said that it just got put into a different higher level program budget. So again, I think the community board, it would be good for the community board, I think, to at some point get an understanding of how that whole process works. But just to feed on that, some of the concerns from the submitters were that there's been huge intensive infill housing going into communities in our areas, but there's no projects to seemingly deal with the impact of that growth.
Celeste?
Just really pick up on Yanni's point, I would just say that I agree with your comments around particularly the transport stuff. And it's going to be really important for us as community board to know what's on the table, because a lot of the projects that are potentially going to get deferred if council decides to go in that direction will be in the eastern suburbs, and because many of those projects have been completed in other parts of the city, there is an equity issue there of like, we get progress and then governments change and then we don't have funding. So I think that we should make clear which projects are priorities so that we can advocate for it if the board wishes to do so, and make that really clear through the annual plan process, because not all boards will be equally impacted, but I think we will be particularly.
Well, I'm planning on us doing
Yeah.
robust submissions.
That's great, but just making sure that the board gets the information in time, because I know the LTP process was particularly difficult on that front.
It's the worst LTP process I've been through, yeah. All right, well, on that rosy note, if you'd like to join me in our karakia whakamutu. Kia tau, te rangi māni e, o te rangi, te piro nei, o papatu anuku, I taku tōnei, o te taiao, e awhi nei, ki runga i a tātou, tihei, mauri ora. Thanks, everyone.
Very good.